Greetings, DD Solar here. So I'm in my solar workshop and I want to do a project on my first shed and my smallest shed. I'll insert some footage of the shed here, and so what I want to do is I want to give it some ventilation. Inside my shed I have at least one electric lawnmower, and I don't think it's meant to be stored in temperatures of 150 degrees Fahrenheit, so I need to get some kind of fan or something in there. I think I have the parts I need to make this. I recently ordered a fan. Let me go ahead and show you that. Here's the fan. It's over here on my workbench. So this is a car radiator fan. I'm very fond of these. And this is the 12-inch. These are around $20 now. The price has gone up, but honestly, where can you find a fan this meaty and powerful for $20? Now, a lot of these fans have the same rating on the back. I suspect they have the same motor in them. This particular fan says 12 volts, 80 watts. So what I want to use this for is to ventilate my first shed. Now, if you've seen my other videos, I do have another setup like this. It's the exact same type of fan, and it's been in the window for years now. Of course, I take it out in the winter. And it works fantastic. It keeps the shed from getting too hot. If you run it at a high speed, it actually stays pretty good. It's nearly ambient temperature. Of course, I don't run it full blast. I'm just doing that to keep the shed from getting too hot. In my other shed, I use a DC-DC converter and a PWM controller. Now, that's all fun and good, but this time I want to keep it really dirt simple. I don't want to have anything that will fail. I want to do the most dirt simple, accessible, easy, solar-powered shed ventilation on Earth. The idea I had, let me go ahead and show you. I don't know how shaky this footage is going to be. I'm going to try moving around with the camera. I do not have a stabilizer, but I figure it's not that bad. So this is the cabin I built in my solar workshop. You may or may not have seen this. That is a sheet over the door. Yes, I have a sheet over the door. It does work. And it's made out of plywood and 2x6. So this is built inside of my solar workshop. It's not very bright. You can't see down there too well. But it's a pretty big structure. And at the top I have all my storage. That's my attic. And I still have room here for workbenches or just anything I want to do. And this is the interior of the solar workshop. It's changed over several months. I had a lot of stuff put in here. It's not the most organized space. The left side is just stuff I brought in here. I have not been working in here as much as I wanted to. It took me months to do all of this, to get all this in here. But I'm hoping now I'll be free to make more videos. And this would be one of the first ones. So first, let me see if I can get you over here to where the item is I'm looking for. This is something I've had in my shop for a long time, and it's hidden right over here. Just go ahead and get that out. It's a solar panel here. And this is not the kind I just bought separately. This is the kind that it came with. It came with a solar light that I haven't used. So let me just put it here. That is a 35-watt solar panel, and you saw on the fan it was rated at 80 watts. But there is a method to this. There's a reason why I'm doing it this way. Let me go ahead and turn on my lighting here. I also have a solar generator, or portable power system, and that runs my lights. As much as possible, I light the entire building with just solar. I use batteries, I use just anything I have laying around. And that little solar generator, that's the Dengawa R200. I made a video about that about a year ago. I haven't uploaded it, or I haven't made it live. But that thing has been serving me well, and it runs a lot of my lights in the shop. Here's the back of the solar panel. This was not intended to be used separate. It was actually included with a LED light, which I have not used. It was a type of light that you mount on the side of a building, and it's powered by a solar panel. And this solar panel is, you can see the open circuit voltage is 12 volts, so that's pretty low. But the maximum power is 3.5 amps for this small panel. And the maximum power voltage is 10 volts. And I don't want to pay for another solar panel. I want to use what I already have. My thinking here is that this car radiator fan is going to need high current. I do not want to run it at 15, 16 volts because that will cause the brushes to spark more. It's a brush motor, and that will wear the motor out more quickly. What would be better is to have more current and less voltage. That way, when the sun is not very bright, the panel will tend to produce more current. And that's exactly what you need to get a big chunky motor like this car radiator fan moving, is current. not so much voltage, you need current. So I would compare it to something like the low gear in a car. You get more torque. This solar panel is going to produce a lot less voltage, but that's exactly what I want. In addition to that, I normally would use a DC converter or a PWM controller or something like that. What I want to do here is make it dirt simple. If I use a lower voltage solar panel with more current, the fan will never run at full throttle. It'll never run at a high voltage. It will still move plenty of air when the sun is shining brightly. So I want to test this new theory of not using any electronics whatsoever. And I want to use this panel to do it without paying any money for a new panel. If this idea works well enough, I may go get a 50-watt low voltage panel. Those are not cheap. Maybe I'll do that later. Today there is not a whole lot of solar, and I want to test this fan on camera. Right now we're actually having a bit of a cool down, which is fortunate because I don't want to work in a shed when it's 98 degrees outside. But I should be able to get this fan to turn and see what the voltage is in gray, cloudy weather. I do need to know whether the fan can turn in cloudy weather. It's also towards the morning right now. I don't expect a lot of power, but I would like to see some airflow. Let's see if I can hook this up. Now this is going to be pretty low voltage because it's very gray and cloudy right now. But I just want to see, when it's not bright outside, what kind of voltage do I get? And how well is this going to perform? It might even encourage me to go buy a more powerful solar panel that's maybe a 6-volt or a 9-volt panel. This is going to be my free test. I don't have to pay. I already own this panel. I'm just using something I already own. So 10.3 volts open circuit. And that is to be expected because it's very dark and gray right now. I don't expect full voltage. I don't expect 12 volts. I'd like to run this fan at about 5 volts to 6 volts. So a panel like this should do a good job, and it doesn't require a DC converter. So now what I'm going to do is attach the fan to it in very poor conditions and see if it's able to turn the fan, which will require some current. See, I think blue is positive. Not 100% on that, but let's see if it will connect. And it drops to 0.12 volts. So right now it's really dark and it's in the morning, so I'm really not surprised that it can't turn the fan. .27 volts. So yeah, it's not going to be able to turn the fan. It's now later in the day. And it's still very gray, overcast, cloudy because it's been raining. And actually you wouldn't want a lot of ventilation when it's been raining anyway, because that'll bring humidity into the shed. So I just put my meter on 20 volts. Let's try this again. Let's see if we get a better voltage. Alright, I'm up to 11.6 volts now. And before I think it was 10 volts. Let's see if we can get the fan to turn. Blue is positive, I believe. Black is negative. You'd want the fan to turn this way. I believe the air comes out this side. Alright, let's see what we get under load. There it goes. 2.4 volts, 5 volts. It's going up. The faster it spins, the better it is. And the camera makes it look like it's spinning slowly, but it is not. It's spinning quite fast. I would not want to put my finger in there. You can actually hear the motor. It's moving a nice amount of air. It's amazing. This fan at 2.8 volts. That is enough air to ventilate a small shed. No kidding. Doesn't look like this fan is the best balanced. That's a lot of air coming out. However, the sun is not out. It is very cloudy and dark. Still, it's noon right now. You can see 2.7 volts is enough to get that fan moving. I'm very impressed. Now let's test the current to see how much current I'm getting. So to test the current, I'm going to change the meter setup here. I'm going to unplug the red lead and put it into 10 amps. Switch the meter to 10 amps, and you always want to remember to unplug this as soon as you take the current measurement, because if you don't, you try to measure voltage, you can burn up the meter. And I've done that so many times. Here's the solar panel connections. So I'm going to do negative to the fan. Let's do positive to the meter. See how much current we're getting there, 7.7 amps. Can't measure the voltage while I'm measuring the current. About 700 milliamps, so it's 2 watts, something like that. It's amazing that 2 watts can move any significant amount of air, but it does. But you can see the fan. Unfortunately, the camera has a stroboscope effect because of the refresh rate, I guess. And it looks like the fan blade is in suspended motion. It's not. It's spinning quite fast. If you look at the balancing clip, you can see the balancing clip, how fast that's flickering in all directions. That gives you an idea of the fan RPM. Next step will be to mount this fan in the shed, find some wire, and put this solar panel out temporarily to see if it's going to power the fan appropriately over a variety of conditions. And now, just to prevent me from shorting out my meter, I'm going to go ahead and unplug that. If you accidentally leave that on there, leave it on amps, and then try to do a voltage measurement. What would happen is you would be doing a direct short inside the meter, and you could destroy your meter. So I'm just making a note of that. Make sure I don't leave it plugged into the 10 amp socket there. I don't want to burn this meter up. I like this meter. Let me go show you the shed which I'm going to be ventilating. This shed is my smallest shed, and it's also the tightest shed. It has basically no leaks, no ventilation other than one single vent. So there's the door, and it's unlocked right now. But even with the door shut like this, it's tight. It even has a gasket right around the door. So this shed is tight. It's the most well-sealed shed I have, or I've ever had. You can see it's just a metal shed with a wooden frame. And there's the only ventilation in the entire shed. The problem is there's only one vent, and you don't really get any airflow at all. So what I thought I'd do is put the fan right here on the lower part of this vent and seal it off and use that to pull air in and then exhaust the hot air. The hot air would be forced out through the top of the vent. This way I don't have to make any holes in my shed. I don't want to cut or do anything to the shed. I don't want to modify it in any way whatsoever. Now, I've gone all solar on my security lighting, and I don't use that security light. That's what that is right there. I could take that out and cut a hole, but I don't want to cut any holes. I don't want to do anything. I don't want to rock the boat or change the status quo. I like to work with what I have. It's a challenge. And this is a very nice vent, and I really do believe if I can get a seal, a foam seal or something around the radiator fan and put it right here in the window, that's going to be better than this shed has ever had in its entire life. And I tell you what, it gets hot in here. And the reason why I want to ventilate it is I have an electric mower. And this is quite old. It's been around a while. This is a workhorse. I tell you what, this thing shocked me when I first bought it. It is a workhorse. I have not used gas in years. I only use electric now. I'm all electric mowing 100%. This thing here, it's powerful. And I've beat on this pretty good. It's been through the works. Now it is electric, and it's got electronics in it. I don't want to store this in the shed for 20 years in 150-degree temperatures. I just don't think that's a good idea. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to do some ventilation, be kind to my electric mower, and see if I can get a fan to go in here in the window. And I don't really know how big of a solar panel to use. I'm just experimenting right now. But hey, I got this vent here. It's great. It's already installed. It's durable. It's well done. It's an aluminum vent. And I might as well make use of what I already have. And this vent here is not going to do anything for the shed unless I use a fan to force air through it. Essentially, I'd be turning it into two vents. The top is going to be exhaust. Hot air rises, so the hot air will go out. And then at the bottom, this radiator fan is going to be pulling air this way toward the camera. And that air will be relatively cool. I am not sure how effective this will be. Next, I'm going to get some wires together and probably will run the wire through the roof and go for a roof mount. I never mount solar panels on the roof, ever. I never do that. However, I'm going to make an exception in this case because all it is ventilation in the summer. So if there's snow on it, I don't care because I wouldn't be using it in the winter. And the roof is just a standard metal roof for a shed. I'm going to have to find some way to mount it there. I don't really want to mount it on the wall, which is metal. I don't really want to do anything else to this shed. It's an old shed. I don't want to keep putting holes in it. So I'm going to try to find a way to mount the solar panel on the roof. I'm experimenting with walking around with my camera, and I don't know how shaky this is going to be. That's why I'm trying this. I kind of like to include shots of moving around instead of just staring at a workbench all day. And who knows, in a few years maybe I'll have a gimbal or a stabilizer, but right now I'm going to use my elbow. So the next step is to get some wires together. And I don't think I need a fuse or anything. This is literally going to be dirt simple. It's just going to be some wires connected to a solar panel, connected to a fan. And the wire needs to be relatively thick because, you know, it's going to have 8-10 feet of wire there going to the roof. And we're talking about low voltage, high current. I actually have not been out in my workshop in months. The only time I come out here is to turn on the air conditioner to keep the place from getting too humid, and to turn on my inverter or anything else I need to get things that I use for work and then put them away. This is the first time in months I've actually been out here to do anything, so pardon the mess. Everything is here to make a real electronics workshop. It's just kind of stacked up against the wall, and hopefully the quality of the videos will improve over time. Of course, it's now raining, and now there's really no solar at all. This is my solar power board. I haven't worked on this again in months, but it's still serving me well, and I have a lot of room to add more electronics. I do want to add more. I just haven't had time or the ability to make any more of those videos right now. I need some light, so I'm going to hook up my solar-powered LED floodlight. Bonus, I can't see what I'm doing, so I'm going to have to do a little mini project here. I'm just going to take my LED floodlight and mount it permanently on the ceiling because I can't see anything in here. And usually I hold it on with a construction clamp, but I'm always nervous about it falling off. I can't really bring myself to make holes in this building. It's like I spent months building it, and I just don't want to drill holes everywhere. I don't know if you have that kind of problem or not. Not everybody does. But I don't feel like making any holes. However, I'm going to go ahead and force myself to do that so I can securely mount that LED floodlight properly over my head so that it won't fall and break the glass. Okay, I'm going to make myself drill a hole in my building. Yeah, I don't like doing that. I spent many months and weeks working on this building. All these beams here you see are hand built with glue, screws, and levels and clamps, and so, you know, I don't like drilling holes in my handiwork. I also deliberately insulated the other side of this plywood deck. If you've seen my other video about the solar cabin, this plywood deck, I didn't insulate this side, I insulated the other side. I just laid out 2-inch thick R10 foam board. That way I can look at these beams. I think they look really nice, and I don't know, I like the way they look. And I spent a lot of time building them by myself and with injuries, so it was very difficult. But anyway, sooner or later you have to drill a hole in something, so I just went ahead and did that. Now what I'm going to do is mount the bracket for my solar floodlight, which is right here. And then there'll be more light in here, and this is going to be powered directly by solar. It has no batteries or anything in there. So let me go ahead and get this mounted. Alright, deck screw just a deck screw. I'll go ahead and put that in there. Now, with it basically being dark outside and morning and cloudy, I don't know how much light I'll get, but it's time to use my high-tech switch, which is basically a spade connector. So let me go ahead and hit that. And it does light up. Pulls the voltage down to 9.28 volts. But I can see a little better now. And now this light will allow me to point it anywhere I want. I can point the light anywhere I want, at the workbench or out into the building. Point it that way. It allows me to aim it around anytime I need to. I just aim it down like this, not for now. So now I have a little more light in here. Now when there is a little bit more solar radiation available, that 30-watt light really comes to life and it gets very bright in here. Now for even more light, over here I have a solar generator. This is a, okay, the brand is Floron, or Florion. I don't know how to pronounce that. This solar generator I did a video on a long time ago, and I disabled the vacuum fluorescent display in it because it was faulty and it was running the battery down and getting hot. Now I have a digital LED voltmeter in there, as you can see. And this thing has a USB bar light plugged into it. Right up there. That's only using a few watts. I also have a 12-volt desk lamp plugged in, which is right there. So I can go ahead and turn that on. Hopefully this will be enough light to do work in here now. Over here I have a inverter. It's this blue thing on the left. And this is using my 2-stage boost cooling fan system. So these are the boost fans right here, and these are powered 100% by solar. They're powered right through this connector, which goes into this board. And the main fans, there's 3 fans inside the inverter. Those are powered separately using an AC adapter, but that makes sense because it is a AC inverter. So here we have a opportunity to get slightly more light. If I push this button here, it'll turn off the fans which are in the inverter, which are not being used. Yep, and the light just got a little bit brighter. So that got me up to 8.4 volts. Now my main solar array is at 65.4 volts, and that's used for the inverter. And even though it's very dark, my guess is I could probably hook those up to my LED light. But I don't want to risk blowing it up because it's a 24 volt light. 12 to 24 volts. If I plug those solar panels in, most likely, even though it's gray and cloudy and there's not much power, it will probably blow it up. So I don't use those panels for anything else right now. I do have plans to try some experiments with them later. But right now they're just for the inverter. And because it's dark, the inverter's not running. Okay, there's a preliminary setup for testing. I do want to seal this fan in so that there's no air gaps here, but I'm just trying to get a handle on how I can keep the fan from rattling. So I'm going to use foam for that. And I may do a little bit of woodwork or carpentry here, but I'm not 100% sure how well this fan will perform in this type of setup. So I don't want to get too excited and nail everything down and make it permanent. This fan is taller than it is wide. I did not expect that. But it's not a deal breaker, just barely fit. And allowed me to cram some foam in there. That isn't going anywhere. I'll still fasten this with a screw because I don't want it to vibrate loose. I have some of this foam that comes with solar panels used to protect them in shipping. And I think what I'm going to try to do is make me a gasket. See how this does. I have some of it available, might as well use it for something. Not sure how this will work out, but I'm eager to give it a try. And I actually want to cut a little bit on the inside because I want to have a bit of an overlap there. If I cut too thin, it's probably not going to make a very good gasket. So I'm going to err on the side of caution. If I have to, I can trim it later. And this will make a decent seal and minimize the amount of air that's escaping around the fan where I don't want it to. Hopefully it doesn't rub on the blades, but I can always trim some off later. Okay, there's my gasket. Let's see, I think I'll take a little bit off this side right here. It doesn't need to be perfectly straight because I'm going to have additional foam padding to seal off the sides. So yeah, try to line it up properly. It's going to be a bit tricky to get that lined up, but I think it should work. Let's see, I think I may have it upside down. Probably doesn't matter, but yeah, it fits better this way. I think that will do. Let me see if the blades are rubbing. They don't seem to be rubbing. I'm going to go out in the shed and give this a try. I'll have to cut some of it off. Yep. Some of that will have to be cut off. See, it's curved. Let's cut some off of this side. That's a little better. Yeah, I think I messed up. Let's try putting it this way. I think I messed the top up. It's a bit crooked. Yeah, it's a bit crooked. Alright, let's try test fitting the fan real quick. Yeah, it's going to need to sit a little higher than that, so I'll use foam. Actually, it's pretty close. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'll just trim the top a little bit. I think that will do. It also will probably prevent any vibrating or rattling when the fan spins up, if it spins up really good. Let's see if I can get the foam padding on the sides. That's going to be tricky. Yep. Get it in there tight. Okay, that's pretty good. I would like to have a perfectly round gasket that's perfectly shaped, but not going to happen. I'm going to try raising the fan up slightly. Put some more foam in here. And it sits a lot better on the gasket. Now the test to see if the fan will spin. I hope it's not rubbing on anything. No, it does not appear to be rubbing on anything. Yep. At this time, I'm just going to test the fan, so I'm not going to spend any more time trimming the foam. I'm going to go ahead and install some screws here and fasten this in where it can't move and get some power going to it. And later on, depending on how things go, I'll probably cut out some of this here because I want to have as much of this part of the vent as possible available. It's kind of lopsided. You have a lot of intake and not much out. So I want to cut down into here. But this should move some air. We'll see what happens. Couple of screws just to make sure this fan doesn't fall out. If I don't put the screws in, I guarantee you it's going to fall in the middle of the night. And I'll find it probably laying in a position where it locks up the blades. I don't think that fan is going anywhere. Okay, there's the fan running. I went ahead and just connected it with some alligator clips, and when the sun shines, it runs pretty good. Actually, there's quite a lot of air coming out. It is cool air, and it appears to be working. It's not very efficient because it's having to pull against this vent, but it moves a noticeable amount of air, and every time the sun comes out, you can hear the fan speed up. That's why it's speeding up. It's cloudy. To save time, I just used alligator clips for now to test the fan, because I wasn't sure whether this panel would run it or not. And the wire is just running to the panel outside. The fan changes speed according to the sun, whether the sun is shining or not. And it's cloudy right now, so it's changing the fan speed. Also, it's very windy. You can hear the wind blowing. This is the outside of the shed, and you can feel hot air or warm air depending on the temperature coming out the top. And if you put your hand down here, it's cool. So it's definitely causing an air change in the shed. It's definitely making a difference. So I'm going to go ahead and install this permanently as a long-term solution. There's the solar panel just propped up on the outside. So what I need to do next is find a way to mount the solar panel securely and up off the ground so I don't have to mow around it and trim around it. I ordered some parts from Amazon, and I'm going to see if I can use those to mount the solar panel. After seeing that the fan was able to move enough air to cool the shed off, I went ahead and spent a little bit of money on parts. Now I have other wire I could use possibly. I'm not sure what kind of wire I'm going to use. This is a 10-foot extension cord. It wasn't too expensive. And I can certainly cut this and use it. I believe it's an outdoor cord. Even comes with a tie. At least I have this cord here if I need to use it. There's other wire I can possibly use depending on how I do the install. Next thing I got was these little magnets. These are really tiny, but boy are they strong. Boy, they're really strong. What these are is little countersunk magnets. And I'm not really sure how much magnet I need, but my plan was to try to stick this solar panel on the roof of my shed. In order to do that, I need a fairly strong magnet. These magnets are quite surprisingly and shockingly strong. I did not want to get too strong of a magnet because those can be very inconvenient to deal with and just overkill anyway. I also got these magnets, which are probably overkill. Wow, these are pretty big. These are rubber-coated magnets, and they have a stud on the end with a nut on it. And my thinking was probably these would be good for outdoor use, but I can't say for sure. These magnets are pretty strong. I do like the rubber. They weren't terribly expensive. I don't think they're the strongest ones you can buy, but I'm only holding a tiny solar panel on a roof, and I'm going to have 4 of them, so I don't think I need to go too far. I'm hoping I can use these here. These really do look convenient with the stud and the bolt on there. That looks very easy to work with. I forgot to mention these magnets are coated. Both magnets have a coating. One is rubber. This one is, I want to say epoxy. I'm not sure. They're coated with some kind of substance. Normally neodymium magnets are a bright chrome color. And if I can find the right screw, I might be able to just screw these right on to the solar panel. So anyway, I have 2 mounting options. They're non-permanent. There's no holes to be drilled except in the solar panel. I don't want to drill any holes in my shed roof. I don't have room to run a thick cable, so I'm going to try this low voltage landscape wire that I have already. I have quite a lot of it, and see if I can get that through the roof of my shed. Sorry I couldn't show the whole thing, as I don't have a dedicated camera crew. That's the wire. I fished it through the seal underneath the metal roofing. So no cutting or modification. I used some zip ties to help get the wire through. And now the wire is coming right out from underneath the roof, and I can connect that to the solar panel. I've got some wire unspooled here, and I'm probably going to run it right along that roof truss there. And I want to have some slack so that case I want to change the setup or do anything later, make some adjustments. It's not going to be a lot of voltage drop to add another couple of feet. All it is a fan. Now I need to remove the old wire from the solar panel. I'm not going to throw it away, and who knows, I may use this again with the light that it came with. Right now I'm not using it, so I've got to cut the wires. Not the best camera footage, but I'm on the roof of my shed, and I've got this solar panel laying here. This is the same one I showed earlier, and I'm marking it for layout. So I'm just going to put a little mark here, and I'm going to come down to this end and put a small mark here, and move on to the next step. Okay, what I need now is some washers, and I hate wasting washers, but I'm going to need a lot of them, and I'm going to need probably, it's hard to say, these are my 3/4 inches screws, but I have a feeling that's not going to be long enough. I do have 1 inch. Not really sure. This is all an experiment. And this project has to be done today or it's not going to happen. So I have to use what I have in stock, and all I have are these screws here. I can't find anything else that'll work. So I'm going to try to improvise and make these work. It's not my original idea, it's a modification, but oh well, I'll try to make it work. I'll spare you some of the details. I did a lot of scrounging around, and my idea was to mount the solar panel using magnets, but that turned out to be a lot more difficult than I thought. Due to my state, I did not have the ability to reason this through and really think about it, and indeed the roof is aluminum, not steel, which makes it much more difficult to use magnets to mount a solar panel. Now I have scrounged everywhere to find fasteners and hardware, and I came up with a solution, I think. So I'm using more magnets than I wanted to, but these magnets were actually quite affordable. This is a small epoxy-coated neodymium magnet, and they don't look like much, but man are they strong. They'll pinch your fingers. I like using neoprene rubber, and I use it a lot. I'm going to use this neoprene rubber that I have left over from another project to act as a spacer between the neodymium magnet and the metal mounting hardware. The other reason why I'm doing this, other than just to pad the magnet, because they can crack and are quite brittle, is because I don't want to waste washers and I need to build up the height. So the screw is long on purpose because it needs to have some standoff from the roof that I'm mounting it on. Now this was not my original plan, but these magnets are a little on the small side and I don't really have the correct flathead screws. So what I'm doing is I'm encapsulating the screw head with 2 magnets, like that, which gives me some standoff, gives me more magnetic force. These magnets were quite affordable, and I'm going to get some more of them. So I don't mind doubling up the magnets, that's okay. And as you can see, I now have more height. I just need a couple of washers, and we'll see if this can be mounted to the solar panel. Now I don't want to drill holes in my solar panel, but it's going to be a requirement in this case for this project, so I'm just going to go ahead and do it. And I've already marked the layout earlier, so I'm going to just go ahead and drill 4 holes in this solar panel. So I'm going to use my builder's square or combo square to make sure I get all the marks in the same place on both ends. To drill the holes, I'm going to have to be really careful. I've done this before. I'm going to take a piece of steel and wrap it in a piece of paper towel and use that as a backstop. That way if I accidentally push through too much, it'll hit the steel. If you have a block of wood, you can also use a block of wood. Just make sure it goes underneath where you're going to be drilling. Okay, there's the hole. Didn't damage the backing on the panel, hopefully. Drill out to the next size. And I'm nervous about accidentally drilling through the wood block, so I'm going to go back to the steel. Yeah, that's on there. Install the cover magnet. And there's the magnets on the solar panel. The solar panel is not actually going to be this far off the roof. It's just the way my roof is shaped. I have to have some standoff to reach down to touch the trough of the metal roofing. And this magnet here is temporary until I can get another set of these. The countersunk part is facing down, which is not what I want. Unfortunately, these seem to have a random north-south. It's just a random thing. It'll still work. That'll be temporary. I'm going to get some more of these magnets, and then I can have all the countersunk parts facing inward so the screw doesn't interfere. It barely interferes as it is. Okay, there's number 4. That was pretty tedious. And it's a bit hard to show. But this solar panel is stuck on with 4 magnets. And there's enough steel under this roof that I can use the magnets. At first I thought I wouldn't be able to do it, but I'm able to do it. It's working. And best of all, I can control the distance from the roof deck if I want to. Meaning that I can adjust it by adding or removing washers, and I can get this sitting really tight to the deck. Right now it's sitting, you know, 1/4 of an inch or something. Probably will drop it a little bit, but that ought to do for now. I could not show fitting the solar panel on the roof while holding the camera, but there it is up there again. Got the wire coming out. There's plenty of room for the wire. Then this is the excess loop that's hanging down. I'll have to feed that back in. And the reason I use spade terminals or fork terminals is I want to be able to remove this panel quickly if there's, say, a storm or something or some maintenance requirement. All right, I'm going to go inside and hook this up and get some fresh air going. Terminate the wire with alligator clips because I may want to make changes later, so I'm going to use alligator clips so I can remain flexible. So I'm going to polarize, use a red and black alligator clip, then I can hook other things up later or make changes without any problem. I'm going to go ahead and check the polarity on the wire using a voltmeter. I just want to make sure I have positive and negative correct in case I want to connect something later. 10.93 volts on the roof. So this side is positive. Well, this is incredibly hard to do with no workbench standing up. Really should be at a workbench, but there's no workbench here. I'll try to get the alligator clip crimped on there. So this is positive. I'm going to check one more time to make sure it's positive before I solder this on. And it's getting really hot in this shed. I sure do look forward to getting out of it. Okay, there's the alligator clips. This is not a professional or permanent install, but it gives me some flexibility. And the cold air coming in is great. Got some cool air coming in now. Good to go. It's better than nothing. And the fan squeaks a little bit, so I'll probably add some oil to it at a later time. It could also be the brushes, I'm not sure. It only does it at low speed. When it's running at a normal speed like this, it sounds great. Let's see how many volts under load we're getting. .7 volts, something like that. And I do hear the fan squeaking a tiny bit while it's running. I can't tell if that's the bearings or something else. but I can always take the cover off and put some oil in. It's not a big deal. So 6.7 volts under a load is actually perfect. I wouldn't want it much higher than that, if at all. Now to finish the install for the magnetic solar panel, I'm going to use strips of steel underneath the aluminum roof deck. I do not recommend this as a permanent install. It's not a professional way of doing it, but I'm just experimenting to see how I can mount a solar panel without drilling holes. Oh, it grabs on there pretty good. Yeah, not professional. I would like to have some bigger magnets, but even those little black ones, they really grab. It's amazing. And you can't see it because it's dark, but there's 4 pieces of steel. There's actually steel already under the roof deck, but I chose to use my own steel and not use what's there. And I think this is more flexible. I'm going to do some more research on how to make this work a little bit better. This was a prototype and a first try. I've never mounted a solar panel with magnets ever. It works, but I need to think out how to get more magnetic strength or Gauss, just for peace of mind. Either that or double the number of magnets that are on it. That's also possible. I think with larger magnets or double the number of magnets, honestly the only time you need to remove it is probably in a hurricane, but I'm not sure about that. It depends on the strength of the magnets. There's the outside of the vent. You can hear the fan, hopefully. You can feel cool air moving, but up here, the temperature changes. It warms up because it's stale, hot air from the shed coming out the top. Not a huge amount, but it's enough. So it definitely is causing an air change in the shed. It's actually louder than I thought. And there's the finished product. I will be doing some more experimentation, but that thing is stuck on there. I'm going to buy some more of those magnets, and hopefully that will improve the security of the panel on the roof. It's stuck on there pretty good. I like this method, and I definitely will be using it again, but probably on a steel roof. On a steel roof, it's a lot easier. This is really, really tough when it's aluminum and you don't have the hardware you need. It looks like this fan is going to serve me well. I'm going to leave it in here. I'm going to let the brushes on the motor turn in for a while. I did run this for a long period of time at low speed, but I'm going to leave it alone for a while before I try putting any oil in. My other radiator fan squeaks also at low speed, so it may not necessarily be the bearings. I'm not really sure. Right now you really can't hear any squeak. It sounds fantastic. Those alligator clips will give me some flexibility if I want to change out the fan really quick, or maybe add some other electronics in here. I hope you enjoyed this video. I put a tremendous amount of work into it. Most of it was off camera over multiple days, not to mention the editing, but hopefully it will be interesting to somebody. I hope it helps somebody as well. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.